On March 22nd, Justin Bieber posted something that went far beyond his usual aesthetic snapshots or spiritual musings. It was raw, it was intimate, and it felt like a tremor before a quake. In a post shared with his 292 million Instagram followers, the pop star wrote, "I got anger issues too, but I want to grow and not react so much. SMH." A second post quickly followed, even more telling. "I think I hate myself sometimes when I feel myself start to become inauthentic. Then I remember we're all being made to think we're not enough. But I still hate when I change myself to please people," he wrote. It was a confession, not just to his fans, but possibly to himself. Bieber, long hailed as one of the most recognizable names in pop culture, appeared to be spiraling inward, while the world around him closed in with a new, unnerving narrative. In that moment, the polished veneer cracked, revealing the turmoil of a man grappling with identity, shame, and scars that possibly run far deeper than the public has ever seen. Haley's Echo, Still Relevant Boo. Alongside his own reflections, Bieber posted a throwback screenshot of a 2019 message from his wife, Hailey Bieber. The original caption read, "I want to be more vulnerable this year." Over it, Justin scrawled, "Still relevant boo." The phrase might seem sweet on the surface, a husband nodding to his wife's emotional transparency. But in context, it felt like something more, a coded message, maybe even a silent call and response between two people bound not just by love, but shared trauma. The unraveling begins. While fans were busy decoding the emotional posts, industry insiders and those following recent celebrity scandals saw the timing as anything but random. Just over a week earlier, on March 13th, Bieber had taken to his Instagram story with another confessional bombshell. "I personally have always felt unworthy," he wrote. "Like I was a fraud. When people told me I deserved something, it made me feel sneaky. Like, damn, if they only knew my thoughts, how judgmental I am, how selfish I really am, they wouldn't be saying this." He went on, "I definitely feel unequipped and unqualified most days." This was not a man promoting a new album or teasing a single. This was a man shedding layers, possibly preparing to expose more, or bracing for the public to uncover truths he could no longer keep hidden. Usher, Diddy, and the brewing legal storm. The backdrop to Bieber's sudden vulnerability is a legal storm gathering force, one with names like Usher and Diddy at its center. Usher, the R&B icon who discovered Bieber and helped launch his career under a joint deal with Scooter Braun and L.A. Reid, is reportedly preparing to testify in court. The courtroom buzz is not just about music rights or label contracts. It's about allegations of abuse, coercion, and possible sex trafficking, all tied to Diddy's long shadow in the entertainment industry. Reports suggest Usher may be called to provide first-hand insight into his own past with Diddy, a past that reportedly includes a controversial period when Usher, just a teen at the time, lived with the music mogul in New York. Insiders say that period was rife with wild parties, adult situations, and behavior wildly inappropriate for a 13-year-old. And now, whispers suggest that whatever Usher endured, Bieber might have as well. Bieber's silent testimony. Bieber has not yet been named as a plaintiff or witness in any legal filing. But fans and legal analysts alike can't ignore the connection. His emotional unburdening on social media doesn't just hint at internal conflict. It resembles what experts call pre-disclosure behavior, a psychological phenomenon where survivors begin to allude to trauma before they are ready to speak it outright. The cryptic posts, the anxiety about being a fraud, the shame of changing himself, to please others. The sudden burst of honesty about anger. In isolation, these are the musings of a troubled man. In context, especially in light of the allegations surrounding his former mentors, they read like unspoken truths trying to claw their way to the surface. A resurfaced interview clip has also gone viral, featuring a man discussing Usher's past association with Diddy. "Let Usher explain that to you," he says gravely. "Let Usher's mama explain that to you. The hospital was in Scarsdale, New York." The implication? Something happened. Something serious enough to land a teenage Usher in the hospital. Usher himself has alluded to that time in vague but unsettling ways. In one interview, he recalled, "There were very curious things taking place. I didn't necessarily understand what I was even looking at." He admitted to feeling uncomfortable, to not sleeping, to begging Diddy to put him in the studio instead of dragging him to clubs. And if Usher endured such things, the question now becomes, did Bieber experience similar conditions under the guise of mentorship? The Hollywood pipeline. Grooming disguised as opportunity. The music industry is no stranger to grooming. It's just usually cloaked in mentorship, contracts, and red carpet glamour. Bieber was only 13 when he skyrocketed to fame. His rise was engineered by a powerful trio, Usher, Scooter Braun, and yes, Diddy, who at one point was a visible and vocal supporter of Bieber's career. Photos from the early 2000s and 10s show Bieber in Diddy's company, at parties, in private jets, at industry events where the average attendee was well over drinking age. At the time, fans chalked it up to Bieber's charmed life. Now, those images look far more sinister. The DJ Khaled factor, DJ Khaled, another fixture in Diddy's social circle, has also been mentioned in speculative discussions around the scandal. Known for his catchphrases and collaborations with artists like Bieber, Khaled is reportedly in way too many pictures, according to some observers. While there's no concrete evidence implicating Khaled, the proximity raises eyebrows. "If I were a lawyer," one commentator quipped, "I'd be asking, who's this guy in all these photos? What's his role? What does he know?" Usher's testimony could change everything. Legal experts say Usher's testimony could be a turning point. If he corroborates any of the allegations swirling around Diddy, from underage exposure to sex trafficking, it would not only implicate Diddy, but possibly others in the industry who enabled, ignored, or participated in the behavior. The federal case hinges not just on allegations of prostitution, but on the much more serious charge of sex trafficking, which requires proof of force, fraud, or coercion. Victims reportedly allege they were drugged, manipulated, and even threatened with weapons. While some charges were recently dropped in civil cases, like Lil Rod's, the criminal investigation is still in full swing. And if Usher names names or connects dots that place Bieber in Diddy's world during vulnerable years, the dominoes could fall quickly. The cost of silence. For years, Bieber's image has fluctuated between reformed bad boy and spiritual seeker. But underneath the tattoos and tearful interviews, there's a visible thread of pain. He's alluded to childhood trauma before, abuse, drug use, mental health struggles. But what if the source of that trauma isn't just the pressures of fame, but something much darker? When he wrote, "I feel unworthy, like if people knew my thoughts." Was he speaking about guilt, or about secrets he's been forced to carry? The unraveling web, Justin Bieber's silent protest, amid Diddy's legal storm. In the tangled undercurrents of celebrity culture, the smallest gestures can echo like thunderclaps. This past month, Justin Bieber set off a wave of speculation, concern, and analysis with a deceptively simple move. Unfollowing Usher on Instagram. For a typical star, such a decision might be dismissed as a petty digital spat. But Bieber is no ordinary celebrity, and Usher is no random contact. Their bond traces back to Bieber's earliest days in the industry. Usher discovered Bieber, mentored him, and helped launch a career that skyrocketed into superstardom. That severed connection alone would be enough to spark questions. But in the wider context of a brewing industry scandal tied to Sean Diddy Combs, one now entangled with allegations of sex trafficking, racketeering, and coercion, the move takes on seismic significance. Behind the digital curtain, a pattern emerges. Bieber's mass unfollowing spree didn't end with Usher. Other notable figures were suddenly cut off from the pop star's online world. Scooter Braun, his former manager and business partner of Usher, was unfollowed. So was Allison Kay, a prominent executive in the music industry and once a key figure in Bieber's management team. Ryan Good, stylist and close friend, was dropped. Even Kenny Hamilton, Usher's former assistant and a longtime figure in Bieber's inner circle, was abruptly removed. This wasn't a random purge. Each individual unfollowed has been directly or indirectly linked to either Usher or Diddy, forming what fans and analysts are now calling the Bieber disconnect. More than a personal fallout, the move increasingly appears to be a quiet, coded protest, an effort to distance himself from a web of industry ties now tainted by the expanding investigation into Diddy's alleged criminal enterprise. The Usher connection, a mentor under scrutiny. Usher's role in Bieber's life is well documented. When the young Canadian teenager was still an internet sensation with a YouTube following, it was Usher who saw potential in the star and offered him a chance to sign under Raymond Braun Media Group, a joint venture with Scooter Braun. Usher not only helped launch Bieber's career, but also served as a role model and industry guide. However, Usher's own origins in the entertainment industry are now facing renewed scrutiny. Usher has publicly admitted to having lived with Diddy as a teenager, a time when, according to his own accounts, he witnessed curious behavior. In multiple interviews, Usher has alluded to being placed in adult environments far too early. "I was 13, man. I told him, 'You gonna put me in the studio or what?' I wasn't here to party," Usher recalled in one telling anecdote, referencing the star-studded but chaotic atmosphere around Diddy in the 1990s. Now, amid Diddy's legal troubles, Usher's recollections may carry legal weight. Reports suggest that Usher may be called to testify in connection to Diddy's legal battles, raising the stakes of his connection with Bieber. It's worth noting that Usher recently wiped his entire Twitter history, a move he attributed to a hacking incident, but one that many suspect is part of a calculated strategy to reduce digital footprints that may tie him too closely to the mogul now under fire. Diddy's legal quagmire. A RICO reckoning. The case against Sean Diddy Combs has been escalating with dizzying speed. The hip-hop magnate, once lauded as a visionary mogul, now faces a federal investigation that includes allegations of sex trafficking, coercion, racketeering, and prostitution. Court documents point to a well-structured criminal enterprise that allegedly used celebrity power and wealth to manipulate, abuse, and exploit. One key civil suit, filed by Rodney Lil Rod Jones, served as a catalyst. The lawsuit named Diddy and described in detail a network of abuse, claiming Diddy orchestrated illicit activities involving forced sex, drugs, and threats. The FBI reportedly raided Diddy's homes based on claims within this suit, discovering weapons, particularly assault rifles, that, while not forming the basis of charges, appear in court filings and may help establish a climate of coercion and fear. Legal experts note that these details, though not yet forming a formal weapons charge, can still shape the narrative in court. Under the federal rules of evidence, judges can take judicial notice of related legal proceedings and incorporate findings from overlapping civil and criminal suits. If proven, these connections could support a broader RICO case that paints Diddy's empire as a criminal syndicate masquerading as a music label. The silent testimonies of social media Bieber's unfollow spree is not merely symbolic. In an industry where many are silenced by NDAs, contracts, and fears of retaliation, the subtleties of social media have become a form of protest. Each unfollow becomes a sentence in an unspoken statement. I want no part of this. Bieber has spoken out in the past about the psychological toll of fame, sharing deeply personal insights into his struggles with anger, identity, and self-worth. On March 22nd, he posted a strikingly honest message. I got anger issues too, but I want to grow and not react so much. In a follow-up post, he admitted, I think I hate myself sometimes when I feel myself start to become inauthentic. Just days earlier, on March 13th, Bieber posted to his Instagram story, I personally have always felt unworthy, like I was a frauder. Like damn if they only knew my thoughts, how judgmental I am, how selfish I really am, they wouldn't be saying this. This self-reflection now appears less about general anxiety and more about his inner conflict over the people and power structures that helped shape his career. His public distancing from former mentors, collaborators, and friends, especially those tied to Diddy, is an act of autonomy in a world that has historically stripped him of it. Industry ties and silent warnings. One cannot ignore the broader implications. Justin Bieber is not the only one signaling discomfort. In recent months, murmurs have echoed across the music world. Longtime collaborators and insiders have begun to retreat. Former Bad Boy affiliates, once fiercely loyal, are avoiding questions. Even DJs, stylists, and producers are reportedly deleting posts and distancing themselves. The collective retreat points to a chilling possibility. Many knew, or suspected, what might come to light. Kanye West, a frequent provocateur, but also a whistleblower on industry contracts and exploitation, once warned of the super-complicated deals that trap artists in silence. We can't just say it's okay for people to super-complicate deals and collude. We have to be willing to stand up, he said in a past interview. Words that resonate powerfully in the current climate. A broken brotherhood? The Bieber-Usher connection was once seen as one of the rare success stories in an industry rife with exploitation. A young artist rescued from obscurity, guided by an older mentor who understood the pitfalls of fame. But now, with Diddy's shadow looming large, the warmth of that relationship has cooled. Some suggest Bieber has grown disillusioned, not just with Usher, but with the entire ecosystem that groomed him for success. An ecosystem that may now be exposed as toxic. What started as a legal drama, centered on one man, has ballooned into a reckoning for an entire generation of stars and their handlers. The question remains, who knew what and when? And as more testimonies are expected to surface, both in courtrooms and quietly, through digital breadcrumbs, the entertainment industry may be forced to confront one of its darkest legacies. The Flavor Camp legacy. Usher and the shadow of Diddy. One of the most infamous chapters in this story dates back to the 1990s, when a young Usher, Raymond IV, was shipped off to what was casually called Puffy's Flavor Camp. The name itself sounds like a marketing gimmick, perhaps even a promotional workshop. But the lived experience, as described by Usher and others in later interviews, paints a vastly different picture. At just 14 years old, Usher was instructed by his label, under the guidance of music executive L.A. Reid, to go live with Diddy in New York City for a year. This decision came at a critical moment. Usher was reportedly on the verge of being dropped by his record label due to voice changes caused by puberty. It was a desperate gambit to shape him into a marketable star. In 2016, during an interview on The Howard Stern Show, Usher recounted this experience with strange ambivalence. He alluded to wild parties, late-night outings, and witnessing things that, at the time, confused him. Yet, despite the ambiguity in his voice, the subtext screamed discomfort. "There were a lot of things going on that I didn't quite understand," he admitted, his tone oscillating between nostalgic and nervous. At the time, Usher was too young to truly comprehend the magnitude of what he was being exposed to. But as an adult, his reflections became more emotionally charged. In a Rolling Stone interview a decade later, he described these early years as some of the hardest days of his life, citing anger, fear, and a deep sense of betrayal. One story stands out: Usher punching a wall at 5 a.m., running through the streets of New York in a frenzy after being ignored by his mentors and record label execs. Why was a child placed in such a volatile, adult environment? Why was his mother, Jonetta Patton, kept at arm's length by industry gatekeepers? In later interviews, she expressed her distrust of the music industry's inner workings, citing deception over here, deception over there. Her concerns echo loudly now, in the wake of mounting lawsuits against Diddy. Justin Bieber's silent shout, a digital divorce from Usher. Fast forward to 2024, and a seemingly small digital action, Justin Bieber unfollowing Usher on Instagram, made waves across both fan and legal communities. At first, it looked like a mundane gesture in the ever-evolving world of celebrity drama. But for those paying attention, this move came at a time when the courtroom heat around Diddy and his past relationships was reaching a boiling point. Usher had just offered statements in court defending his past mentorship under Diddy, portraying his experiences as strictly professional and educational. Yet this narrative clashed heavily with Usher's own earlier confessions, and even more starkly with the current testimonies from other victims. Bieber's unfollowing seemed to scream, "You're lying!" To the casual observer, this might appear to be nothing more than a petty dispute, or a former protege distancing himself from an old mentor. But to insiders, it felt like a loaded act of defiance, an open refusal to co-sign Usher's possibly sanitized version of events. Many interpreted it as a clear line in the sand. The boy who grew up in the machine Bieber's journey is a tragic case study in how the entertainment industry devours its own. Scouted and launched into global fame by Scooter Braun and Usher, he was quickly thrust into a world of glitz, manipulation, and pressure. He was impressionable, adored, and profitable. But underneath that success was a young boy quietly screaming for help. In a deeply emotional interview, Bieber once admitted, "I don't know if I'd be alive today if I kept going like that. I was on a path of self-destruction." His tone was raw, confessional, far from rehearsed. He spoke about growing up surrounded by people who constantly told him how amazing he was, with no room for correction or emotional guidance. It's easy to imagine how such an environment could distort a young person's reality and create a toxic blueprint for adult relationships. In recent years, Bieber has made efforts to reclaim his narrative. His public embrace of Christianity, sobriety, and marriage were not just image moves. They were survival mechanisms. "I'm not trying to earn God's love," he said during one appearance. "God already loved me for who I am." His journey toward healing is a living rebuke of the industry that once commodified his pain. His withdrawal from Usher's orbit seems like more than just a reaction. It's a statement, a way to protect his future and, possibly, his wife. "I just want to protect her," Bieber has said. I don't want her to go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. Usher's digital cleanse, innocence or erasure. Adding fuel to the fire shortly after Diddy's arrest, internet sleuths noticed that Usher had quietly deleted thousands of tweets. The timing was, at best, questionable. To some, this appeared as damage control, an attempt to erase potentially damning conversations or traces of events that might conflict with his courtroom testimony. After all, transparency is often the first casualty in a public scandal. Critics argued that if Usher had nothing to hide, why the sudden purge? Others defended the move as a reasonable act of self-preservation in the age of viral gotcha moments. But in the broader context, his flavor camp origin, his inconsistent accounts, and his current closeness to Diddy, skepticism remains high. The 2011 tip-off and government silence. Adding yet another twist to this tangled web is a long-buried 2011 incident in which a New York gangster, under investigation for murder and drug trafficking, was reportedly offered a deal by federal agents. The condition? Testify about Diddy's alleged sexual activities with underage boys. This never-before-publicized moment, if confirmed, reveals that the federal government may have had suspicions about Diddy's behavior long before the current headlines. Why wasn't this pursued more aggressively back then? Was it a matter of insufficient evidence, or a conscious decision to protect high-powered figures in entertainment? Whatever the reason, this revelation casts a dark shadow on the institutional complicity that may have allowed years of abuse to go unchecked. Mace, the early warning that wasn't heard. In a 2002 interview, rapper Mace, once a member of Diddy's Bad Boy label, spoke cryptically but pointedly about his fallout with Combs. Having left the music industry for religion, Mace's distance gave him clarity. "I don't even sleep like I used to. I got that from him," Mace said, referring to Diddy. It was a haunting remark, one that gained new weight 2 decades later. Mace was one of the few early insiders who hinted at the cost of proximity to Diddy, not just professionally, but spiritually and psychologically. His quiet but steady rebuke of the lifestyle should have raised more alarms. Instead, it was dismissed as another eccentric move by an artist who found God. Is this the fall of an empire or the beginning of justice? With lawsuits mounting, investigations deepening, and public narratives splintering, one thing is clear: the house that Diddy built is shaking, and the people who once stood shoulder to shoulder with him, like Usher, are now being asked to account for their own roles in that legacy. Justin Bieber's quiet revolt may seem small in the grand scheme of things, but its symbolism cannot be overstated. He's not just unfollowing a former mentor. He's breaking ties with an entire system of silence, grooming, and complicity. Whether this is the beginning of accountability or just another media spectacle remains to be seen. But one thing's certain: the truth is clawing its way to the surface, and it's not going to be pretty.